What?
Syncing audio and video is what I mean, because I'm starting...
Okay.
The recording lengths are slightly different because I have to click one then the other.
Gotcha.
Whereas a hotkey lets them both be simultaneous.
But doesn't...
Almost went down the wrong way.
It almost went down. It's drinking the good stuff tonight.
Actually, it's not. Zero sugar's gross. But I'm not the one who buys them, so...
probably why you're choking. Isn't it true, though, that OBS has its own audio, though? So couldn't you sync it from that?
What? Well, the audio from the game, which, by the way, you remind me of, that's the one thing that's not down here, is my audio mix. Hang on. Yeah, okay. Making sure that that's not recording from the mic. So, we're back here again. It's going to keep forgetting that we...
Going debris.
Debris? I'd rather go somewhere else than Bree.
Well, Hobbiton is fine, then.
I mean, it seems obviously much better. I don't quite get... is Bree just for the edgy hobbits?
What? I think maybe Frogmorton is for the edgy hobbits. Bree's a little far.
Frogmorton seems for the preppy hobbits. That's where Bilbo went on his walking holiday. That's a preppy thing to do.
What?
What?
You've determined this how?
Because he says it?
No, I'm talking about you've determined why it's preppy.
Because
not that he walked.
Walking holiday seems a bit preppy. Ain't no goths going on walking holiday.
Well, you got a point there, I suppose.
It's very outdoorsy, sort of...
Hey, you don't know. Liv Tyler's got a life, too.
I don't think she's very goth. Is she goth?
I feel like she's got some... It was a phase.
What phase? I'm not familiar with any phase Liv Tyler was in.
Well...
Not that I'm familiar with Liv Tyler much, but... You're thinking of her father?
Maybe.
Get off me butt!
Let me go, da-da-da.
No, butt munch.
So, this was the only time that actually applied.
Get off my... See, the thing is, they're not that close behind me, so I don't know what it is they're doing to me. Because they're not... They can't be physically grabbing me, and yet somehow they're slowing me down.
Alright, so, before we get into any actual serious topics like butt munching, I figured...
Please don't.
A brief...
No.
Conciliatory revisit.
I will accept
simply
your surrender
to say,
if that's what this is.
It's not surrender. It's simply to concede certain points. So, if I did not make it clear, I recognize that the system that I use for...
The system is down.
For 5 stars does require that it is a integer system. That much I concede.
Well, good. That was literally all I needed you to concede.
Okay, so here's then the reason why, and this actually opens up only a slightly smaller discussion.
Oh, joy. Well, I had a slightly rating-related discussion, but I was hoping to steer it away from this.
Well, this will actually be okay, though, because it'll help steer
okay?
it. It will. It'll
After
steer
2.5
it towards
hours,
that. It'll steer it towards that, I promise.
I'll let them decide if it's okay.
So, the reason that I suppose I have since asked a couple people in similar fashion what they would naturally use, and the reason that I found that I do use an integer system, and again I concede that already, that is the truth, is because while certain websites will give you the half-a-star option, not all do, but even on half-a-star rating websites I can still use whole stars. So it's one of those things where I then have the ability to use my rating system no matter across the board, no matter what the situation may be. And I'm curious what you do when you don't have the half-star option. Because then
round up if I need to, which I don't like.
Well, but see,
I
so I mean
an audit of Goodreads for that very reason. I was like, I wonder because I started with Goodreads first, so I was like, wonder if perhaps did my perspective only change when the other system was introduced, or was I always using this? Well, that's kind of what my question was. And it's just that Goodreads doesn't match it, and I find that that's largely the case.
I will. So another point I wanted to concede: it certainly is true that mathematically, especially after you talked about the idea of shared.
Oh, thank you.
What magic, was
magic,
that?
magic! Every little thing they do is magic. Every little thing they bite my butt off of me.
They're not gonna. I think they.
I have 2 health points left, and they're both menads. 1 health point per. Get me in, get me in, get me in. Not today. Gonna eat my nads? No, not today. Oh, he's miming what he wants.
So I will say, my curiosity was within the concept of there being that shared point because of 2.5 on both sides being the median for your system, which again, with a zero,
sure.
With a zero
again,
system,
that's not how I frame it because I don't care about each side. I care about a total score.
And I understand that, but I still, to me, it is a visual thing about keeping things balanced for the most part. And I do then use the balance point as the tipping point for how I perceive a movie. It's like it's either one side or the other. So that being said, at least I wanted to bring some clarity to what I was meaning. But I am curious. So you said you round up in situations where you are forced to. But does that give you... This isn't specifically to argue my point more as much as it is to say I don't know that I have as much... Because of the point that I stated earlier about the fact that my system works even in a half-star system...
It doesn't.
It would.
No, because you'd have to... Oh, and the fact that you can do it.
Right. I would just not use 0.
Well, sure.
Correct? So...
Or any of the halves.
Or any of the halves, correct.
But that would therefore mean less nuance, is my point.
It would, but what I'm saying is I'm curious what you do, because for me, it still falls within my normal, like, oh, that will work for how I perceive a rating system. When it doesn't work for you as far as your methodology, what... Doesn't that leave you with less nuance? I mean,
by necessity, but I would then blame the site for not allowing more nuance. I got the message from the guy, so hopefully we cannot let our boss die this time. But it's not showing up on the map. I suppose
I'm a little bit more de facto in that...
Well, yes.
By having to choose one or the other, it makes it a little bit more weighty, I suppose. Like, I have to weigh the consequences of me saying... this was actually not that good in this movie, or it was, or whatever, by saying it's enough to lose a full star or gain a full star. You know what I mean?
This woman's going about her life like it's a normal day.
Well, I mean, she's...
15 minutes and I can take my break.
It looks like a natural barricade, but ultimately it's possible she set that up like... Screw all you. Well, I mean, this barricade's set up now.
Well, yeah, but even still, she's awfully nonchalant. She's got a lot of confidence in this vending machine.
Well, I mean...
She clearly is not... Yeah, but see, she also should have known better because, like, I'm not the only augmented person here, lady.
Well, maybe she's augmented too.
Well, okay, she's capable enough.
I was about to say,
whoa,
if you go in there...
If you go in there, it's like... with forceps?
That vending machine was for you, son. Back up.
Those are enormous forceps. What would those be used for?
The last 2 health points you have.
She's looking at it like, don't think I won't do it to you.
Look at her. She wants to. Try something.
Give me a reason I want it.
What? Anyway, are you... So, what do you... That's all I wanted to clarify.
Well, she did do that herself.
Which, again, I wanted to just bring some conciliatory
Well, I accept your olive branch.
There you go. What is your rating, jump
My question was going to be less on the technicals, because...
we do apologize, or rather, I apologize.
Well... it's weird. It's still, even when broken up, it's still the longest video.
Well, and it's, to be honest, I recognize it was probably, for other listeners, it was probably quite arduous.
Well, it was arduous for me having to edit it, because I was like, now we're just repeating ourselves.
Anyway, so what's springboardiness? Because I've got
nothing to do with the springboard, but
I'm saying
mine was just the philosophical element of like, screw what numbers you use and why. what is on the actual films side of the spectrum? What is it that leads to
a good film or
whatever the
film.
Score is? Since we
speaking of score,
potentially disagree on what the number would be. I don't care what the number is.
Sure, I understand.
How do you reach the number?
Okay, so
because I sort of, or maybe I didn't. Maybe this was after we were off the recording, but I thought I touched on the concept
briefly
of the sort of
fondled it.
2 pillars of quality.
2 pillars.
I don't think I use such fancy language.
2 sheets to the
wind.
To the 3.
But essentially, it's like the film.
Why are you doing that?
I need ammo.
Okay.
Some people keep it safe. Some people keep it secret and safe. I want to actually save my boss this time, but I'm not sure that'll happen.
You know, I think that's what a lot of...
I didn't like that boss.
That sounded about as true as a new hire as possible. I think I want to save my boss this time 3 weeks into the job. Yeah, I really don't care.
Yeah, well, it happens.
It does happen. So what are your thoughts? Like, what are some of the priority? Well, I would say let's use broad brushstroke initially and just say what categorically would you use to?
Well, we've talked about this before.
You said the 2 pillars.
Well,
what does that remind
that's
me?
a fancy way of putting it, but ultimately, it always comes down to, as I have said many times, it's the romantic manifesto again. That's why I don't mean to proselytize for that book, but it has radically altered the way I describe this phenomenon.
I don't mean to say that I'm Randian, but I am. You kind of are.
I would say objectivist more than Randian. Not that some people would be ignorant enough to conflate them, but...
Well, yeah, no, I'm not yet.
Where's my boss? I'm also... because I think ultimately Randian implies a certain degree of, like... that's more about the person than it is the philosophy, and that's that didn't do nothing.
How so?
They didn't do nothing. Well, to call it Randian, it's like I follow Ayn Rand rather than I follow the philosophy.
Sure, yeah, that's true. Comes first.
Should transcend the individual.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not a door I could close. Me nads, they're coming for me nads. Who did this? But anyways, so I use the framework of that, which is there are 2 metrics for qualifying art. Aha! Here's the good people. Or the not good people, but I mean the people. The 2 metrics... Oh no!
Too light!
Boss, I'm not good enough at this! You didn't give me enough upgrades.
This is that training meeting I missed.
Oh no, and I don't even have any more points!
This is that training meeting I missed, isn't it? Stupid training meeting, you're not even taste good.
Well, that's unfortunate, because I don't have enough points to upgrade my hacking, so these guys are just gonna die.
Look at him look at you with
that's some bulletproof glass that they patterned with medkits for some reason. I guess I could go to the...
I'm just gonna go with, like, some sort of a...
Well, they're hearts, so I think there's some form of medical...
It looked more like a...
Here you go.
Like a Louis Vuitton bag.
Well, that's what I think they were going for, but they weren't the little pinstripies, whatever they are. I can go back to the nurse lady!
He's hungry for nads.
Okay, that took a turn. Now get him! Kill him! The nurse lady sells Praxis kits so I can upgrade that and save my boss, even though I don't like my boss. He is taunting me. That is guerrilla stuff there. She's going, come get some! Uh-oh. You said augmented nads all the time, get some.
I can imagine somebody coming back in after getting augmented nads saying that very thing.
What would the purpose of that be?
Augmented nads?
Well, because there's only one function.
Well, there would be only one purpose.
So I guess it would augment that one function?
Yes, they would, wouldn't they?
But I failed to see why that would be necessary.
I don't know. Maybe you want to...
I mean, except as like...
Maybe you want a stronger flow.
Unless it was like... That's not...
I'm talking about...
That's not...
Maybe you're a Minuteman. Maybe you prematurely shoot.
That has nothing to do with the I don't think they're involved in that decision making.
Maybe you
getting off of this.
Maybe you just don't make enough. Just
that has nothing. I don't think that's relevant or related.
It is.
No, because I'm not going to get into the biology. Okay, I was able to buy 1 point. So I guess if this
depends
doesn't
on
work,
what you mean by nads, because I don't.
Well, nads means one thing. I'm not talking about the whole operation, just the nads.
Yeah, that.
I think the whole operation would have to be upgraded for that to take place.
Well, I mean, naturally, you would probably upgrade all of it. Yeah.
Well, not necessarily. We specifically said nads, which implies an upgrade of non-nads.
Well, maybe you just want them bigger for the aesthetic.
I guess that's about the only other reason, I suppose. In which case, the all the time get some becomes a lot more vain.
So you're saying that you use the.
So it's essentially I feel like this conversation.
Yes.
This conversation, I feel like, deserves more than what it's having to deal with right now. But over your head. See, this is great. If they had Boingo knees in sort of the whatever it's called, Walking Dead, everyone would have survived. He got through. How did you do it? Not that it matters. Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't see me. Okay, he hit me from a mile off. I'm sorry, I wouldn't normally do this, but your value as a human is diminished.
Okay, finish your point.
Okay, they've ruined my... Nobody was down here before. Oh no, I guess these guys were in this room. I just didn't realize I had to go through this room.
Please explain.
Explain! Just gone. Okay, just resetting. Because the NAD thing threw me. The point is there's... The art is based off of, what it represents and how well it represents it, essentially, if you were to break it down very simplistically. So, a film can be good on a technical level because it executes what it was trying to do, but that doesn't mean what it was trying to do is something I want.
Sure.
So, like, there was an example I was going to give that I can not... Because essentially the argument is, oh, you know what it was? I watched the third Indiana Jones film not that long ago. Because I had not seen the whole series yet. These guys are auditioning for Thriller or something? What? Who do I have to talk to? I thought I came in here to save someone. Yeah, it's you.
Jensen.
We're all doing the Thriller.
Ironic that you should be the one to save us.
Too bad we can't hear this, because that subtitles are small and I'm not going to bother with them.
Mr. Jensen, thank goodness you're here. Help me fix this god-awful comb-over.
What did you do to your augmented nads?
Look at his comb-over.
That's not a comb-over, that's just a part.
That is an augmented head.
Well, I mean, it could be fake hair, that much is true, but a comb-over, that's a part. You'd have to call that... A comb-over is when there's no hair in the middle.
Well, you don't know. He's covered it up. That's the definition of a comb-over.
A comb-over is only a comb-over if it's obvious. Like, if he's bald in the center, he's got some major hair on the side. Most of the time when you've got comb-over, it's like, it's not enough to mask the whole...
He got
That's what he
implants.
augmented. That would be a weird choice. Rather than augmenting his actual follicles to grow hair, he just augmented the hair he had so that it was enough to go with the comb-over.
It's called a weave.
I suppose. I would have thought there'd be a more technical definition. But...
A weave.
No, I'm saying this is the augmented future. Wouldn't they do something different? No. Maybe they didn't.
That's still a weave.
I don't care about this and I can't hear you.
So,
say what you will. But
I'm part of the Gary's with me. I don't...
If you're looking to make
Why
sure
is
that
he
you
trying to
pay
get philosophical
attention to these cutscenes.
Well, because I thought this would be short, but now he's waxing philosophical, and I thought, what's his head was, there's enough waxing.
to give us that hope.
Especially with your gnats.
So, in other words, you would, but that's still, I mean, that's like a bird's eye view. Get a little closer.
Well,
like
you'd have to break each down then into what makes
that's
what.
But
that's why I'm starting from the outside and working in. So this is not my boss.
Okay, so
I thought this. So I saved another guy who's not my boss.
Okay.
So, anyways, that is why, like, a film... Because that's what I was going to talk about with Indiana Jones. It's like, I think what it made me realize, the third film, is that the series itself has always been a lot more silly than I thought. Like, I think Indiana Jones is far less serious an idea than I had thought it was.
Okay.
Perhaps because the reputation of Indiana Jones, I was like, it's such a legendary series that it must therefore be like a thing of legend. But it's actually just really silly.
Well,
And I've bogged... Oh, okay, that was a dead end. But anyways, this is my point, is that I think the reason why I actually, and this will be controversial, I liked this third one more than most of them. And many people say the third one's bad, but the third one, I think, commits to the bit.
Third one is which one? The one with
Last Crusade, with Sean Connery as his dad. And it's definitely a lot more slapsticky, but I'm like, it fits it well because the series is sort of innately silly.
Doesn't that kind
it just essentially accepts that it is what it is and doesn't try to fake it.
Doesn't it put it in a category then for you on is this a thing that I even want it to be executing? Because you don't like slapstick.
Well, I wouldn't quite say... It's not truly to the level of slapstick, but it's a lot...
We're back at this
This is the save point, so I should have saved after I saved What's-His-Head. But now that we know that it's useless, I guess we don't have to, unless we just cared 100%. But since we're basically at the end, I don't see much point in doing that. But basically, my point is, it was what it was, and it wasn't trying to hide it. And I think that's why I liked it more. Because, like, the second film, for instance, I think it's just terrible because the chick, his, like, pseudo James Bond love interest that he has for every movie, the one in that one was really obnoxious. And then they also tried to be like, it's a demonic cult that enslaves children. And I'm like, have you not seen The Crystal Skull? No, that's the fourth one.
Yeah.
What's the second one? The Temple of Doom. Have you not seen that?
I don't know that I've seen that.
You're gonna get eaten.
Don't bite me in the honey. I can't get out of here.
Yeah, you basically
How do you use the jump the way that you do?
Well, you jump.
I've done that. I repeatedly hopped in a circle.
Well, you have to hold I think the height to which you jump is dependent on how long you hold the jump
well,
button.
that would have been nice to know. I'm sitting there tapping it repeatedly, and he's doing the jig while he's getting his hiney eaten.
Well, that's what he likes.
There's just something back there that I like.
So basically, I think the second film tried to have it both ways, and it just felt really like, okay, we're gonna have the obnoxious, dumb Hollywood woman in the same film as child slavery.
But see, then that kind of opens up the topic of tropiness. Like, if it gets to the point that it becomes a caricature of another type of genre,
I almost felt like the third film was almost a caricature of itself.
Well,
but in a way, I think that
thing?
Not to some people, but I actually think the thing about Indiana Jones is that it's an inherently silly idea. And I don't mean
professor going and being an archaeologist is a silly idea.
Okay, but the nature of his archaeology, there's a bit in the third film which essentially explains it, where he's at the college basically giving his like archaeology lecture.
Okay.
At which point he says to all the students, like, it isn't what you think it is, X doesn't mark the spot, it's not this kind of thing. And then literally within like 30 minutes, he's out somewhere in Italy finding a thing and the X marks the spot. And it's like, they did that deliberately because the whole point is, yes, this is not actually what archaeology's like. He's an adventure hero. He's James Bond in archaeology. Which is why he's got the love interest in every film.
Sure.
It's like that. So the fact that they basically just are acknowledging that's like, yeah, this is a silly concept, so we're going to make it silly. And I was like, for some reason that made it work better because
How is that different to you than it doesn't take itself too seriously?
My main quibble with that, I admit, is a pedantic thing because I believe you can take something seriously even if it's silly. I don't think that those are inherently antonyms. Like, if you're a parody joke, you can be a serious parody joke. that's very much what satire originally meant.
Well, sure.
Was that it actually took itself quite seriously because it had to.
It was trying to actually
point.
Communicate a message.
Well, and that's the point, is that they phase through the walls. I've never gone this way.
Into it.
What?
I said into it.
Oh, you said I thought you cut yourself off.
No.
I don't think this takes me anywhere I need to be, but...
Well, certainly away from them.
Well, sure, but this... Oh, it just takes you back into the main room. Oh, that was dumb. Satire it has to be serious, otherwise it loses its effect, because the whole point of satire is that it's meant...
I'd just shoot him right in the kneecap.
Well...
Or you could cap him with an explosive shell in the
kneecap.
That was... If his knee is up there, it's his third one.
No, that was absolutely his knee.
Okay.
That was where I shot him. That wasn't, I'll admit that one. Get away!
I thought you were going to go somewhere else with that. Get away!
You're distracting me from what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so...
Serious, yes. Because satire is meant to almost... It disguises itself as the thing it's criticizing.
But you felt like that was true of the third movie?
It's not quite to the level of satire. It wasn't like, oh gosh, I love this now. It was... I found it to be more entertaining than the other ones because it didn't try...
It embraced the cult classic kind of nature of it.
Maybe that's the way to put it. Because ultimately... The first Indiana Jones film is the most normal of them, which is why I understand why people think that it's like for Adam Savage's perspective, it's the only good one, is his opinion. And I can sort of get that because of the fact that it's the only serious one, sort of. I mean, he's, of course, a sarcastic character.
But I think campy isn't a terrible word to use to apply
I wouldn't call it the first one. The third one is most definitely campy. The second one is too, but it's misguidedly so.
Okay,
because you can't be campy when child slavery and human sacrifice are involved. I mean, you can, but I think it's a misguided thing to do.
It's in poor taste.
The third one is campy because it's not about anything quite that serious.
Right, okay.
But, for example, this is the moment, is that there is literally a moment in the third film at which point Indiana Jones gets Hitler's autograph. And I am like, okay, this is obviously a joke series. Because no series that is intended to be... I don't know. I feel as though my... Well, perhaps I can't judge it. Perhaps... Do you feel... Am I being pedantic when I try to just draw the line between serious and silly? Because that's, of course, a silly thing to do. But it's still serious about it.
I do take some issue with the fact that, me saying it doesn't take itself too seriously, I think it's possible that you and I are saying actually the same thing in just different language. Because you clearly don't like the phraseology of what I'm saying when I say that.
Well, because what it does is it excuses low effort, in my opinion.
Yeah, to you it somehow... communicate some level of disregard for
not necessarily the art itself, but the thing it is trying to be.
And that's not specifically what I'm meaning. I think I'm meaning more.
You mean that it allows itself to be silly?
Yeah.
Well, and I think that there's room for that.
Yeah.
I think it's just when it's at its own expense. I'm trying to think. There's so many examples of joke films that they're almost not even jokes in and of themselves. They are jokes because they're films. It's essentially like modern art.
Sure.
Where it's is the only reason that the urinal counts as art is because I submitted it to the art thing.
Yeah.
It's like the act of making the film this stupid becomes what the film is about.
Right.
It's not that it's just genuinely a silly film. It's the fact that it's a film that dares to be so silly. I think better term would be irreverent than serious.
Yeah, I actually would agree with you, because then you get shows/movies to the level of Jackass, and you're going, yeah, no, that's really dumb.
I don't even know what those are. Achieving.
They don't achieve anything other than here's a bunch of drunk dumb idiots that go out and do dumb things. It's okay, why? And again, irreverent is a great word for it, because it's it's
then
not.
Again, some people would say that's what the third Indiana Jones film, which is why they don't like it.
But
it's a tough. I don't. This is why I'm hesitant to be so certain on my point, because I don't know that it holds up as well to scrutiny. But this isn't even what we were going to get at. My point is, it was what it always was, in my opinion, because Indiana Jones is a silly concept, so the fact that the film is kind of silly fits. So my point is that you can execute something well, and it doesn't necessarily mean that what it's executing is great, but that still means that it has better quality, in my opinion.
I'm heading back to the hangar.
Because it...
Have you been able to raise anyone?
Like, I never actually finished my original laying out of the points, which is why I'm having a hard time saying what I...
Well, I'm certainly just interested.
Because my point is, you can either like a film because of what it is, or because of how well it's done. And those are going to be separate things, because the Star Wars prequels are not that well done. I grant you that. But what they are, nonetheless, is something I like.
Oh, God.
Just
get
jump over
bent,
him.
You dumb...
I don't think he was the one doing that. I fully admit that they're not perfect films by a long shot, but I think what they are trying to be, nonetheless, is something I like.
Sure.
Despite the fact that it wasn't executed well. And then the other example we gave is, like, Inception is a technically excellent film. As an objective critic, I don't think I could say that Inception has anything wrong with it. But it's not a 5-star film to me because of the fact that what it achieves isn't necessarily something that I cared about, even though it was achieved very well.
See, and I didn't specifically feel that way about that film. However, I think
It's my stand-in because...
No, but I think that's a great example because I think your metric is still very much useful. Because there are times that I
gave the example...
Like, I think that me going... It's even the way that I see, that I evaluate or value...
Back to the hangar to see if those blasters...
I suppose on a structure of value hierarchy of what movies or films I'm even going to see is based on the same thing. Like, does that look like a good film based on the actual execution, even in the previews, or does it look like something that I would want to go watch simply because it's a case in point? Why is it that Assassin's Creed, the movie, was one that I actually gave some credence to? Because I like the concept. I like the concept a lot. Now, it was poorly executed. It wasn't horribly executed, but it was not great. I think
because, again, I'm not sure if I can recall...
But what was great about it was the only film that I've ever gone... It wasn't horribly executed, and it was actually a game adaptation film that didn't suck, and that's saying something.
Yeah, that's sad that is the bar for game films. Is like that they don't suck.
It carved out. Now it could be the first of its kind. That would be great.
No, it's not the first of its kind.
No, meaning like the first game film that actually was decent. Because I own it, I enjoyed it.
I'm not sure that their game films have been around a long time.
Yeah, but none of them have
them
really succeeded.
I've heard that Blade... Was Blade ever a game? I know it was a comic book. I thought it also had a game. The game might have come after the movie, so that might not be fair. I don't remember well enough. But I wouldn't know the history well enough. But see, that's an example of, like, it wasn't... I don't recall anything about it that I was like, oh, this is bad.
Right.
And yet I don't also recall anything about it that I was like, oh, this is great. The one thing I appreciated is the fact that they didn't adapt any of the games and instead made a film that was like the games.
Right. It was.
They chose their new period of history that still fit within the context.
It was conceptual, not...
So I guess in that case, it succeeded at what it's conceptually was attempting to do, even if it wasn't that standout.
Sure.
Honestly... average sort of middle ground films are the hardest to describe because the very essence of being in the middle means that it sort of didn't evoke much.
Stupid. I can't even get past
it. It does seem to be a weird run-of-the-mill luck thing because sometimes I get through scot-free and then sometimes they munch me butt.
No!
You ever want to munch your butt? You're gonna munch your butt.
They're munching your butt.
You munched your butt. Well, you make it. Get the door, get the door, get the door.
I can't.
Break wind.
I can't.
Okay, well, this is your fault if you die. Your ineptitude at pushing buttons.
I'm pushing it. He looked like...
Hordes of zombies I can get through, but elevator doors still stump me. Anyways, this is... I like the metric...
Came off a little bit more sing-songy, like a Sticks and Stones thing. Zombie men might not munch my butt, but elevator doors will always vex me.
I like this particular image because of the fact, again, perhaps it's a mathematical thing again, but like the way that you graph a oval is unlike a circle which has one point around which it has the radius. There's 2 points of an oval, and I forget exactly how the formula works because it's a bit odd. It's not even a matter of the mathematical formula. The one way that I have seen, it's like a cheat for how to draw an oval.
Richard,
On like if you need it to be exact,
heading back to the hangar.
but you actually have to like draw it physically and you can't use a computer to graph it.
Yeah.
Is you take 2 nails or some kind of things that you post at those 2 vertices, like the 2 central things.
Francis.
If you tie a rope around it, that is so that it is encircling both nails, and then you simply pull the pencil to as far as it can go and trace that line, because you will always if you do that, get butt munched. If you do that, I'm sure if you've seen it on like TikTok, it's one of these weird like Zen type things, because to see it done kind of explains it better than describing it ever could.
Right.
But it's essentially, because the string obviously has a fixed length because it's tied in a circle, it will always be within that fixed length of one of the 2 posts.
Right.
Which means if you come all the way to one side, you're stretching it such that the farthest post is holding you back.
Right.
And then when you stretch to the other side, the farthest post again holds you back, and then when you're in the middle, it's sort of both of them. So that's my metric when I say those 2, like, it's either what it is trying to be and how well it achieves that. So a film that achieves what it's trying to be will always be slightly held back by me not caring about what it's trying to be.
Right.
It will gain points because of the fact that that it succeeds at what it's trying, but what it's trying isn't giving it any points. And then sometimes it's the opposite, where what it's trying to be gives it a lot of the points, but it's held back by its lack of technical execution.
Well, and that's, I think, for me, why I used Assassin's Creed as a good example of that, because there are films that I want to see or that I like because of what they are.
Perhaps that's why I don't have that much feeling for that film, is that it succeeds at evoking the game, but it doesn't necessarily succeed at being a movie. Like, if I wanted an Assassin's Creed plot, like, I almost wish that the games... Like, if there was a game made of that movie, which was Assassin's Creed Spanish Inquisition, I would probably be more interested in that than the film. Because, again, with video games, the difficult...
Me in
you're
that.
in there! You're in! Push the button! You're not! Like, this... Like,
Just get in, man!
with games... When you take the interactivity out of a game, you really need to give something else to make it worth doing that. And I think that the Assassin's Creed film took the interactivity away, gave us an interesting Assassin's Creed time period, but they didn't replace the interactivity with anything to make us watch.
But see, if I could posit something, only because I have actually...
Save now.
I have actually...
Let's save our way to slightly better progress.
expanded outside of strictly the games.
Oh,
The comics are that way too.
Comics.
Well, comic store, the comic book store.
I guess I've never actually been to a physical comic store. I never see them at like the half price. I go to.
No, they wouldn't really be there.
Well,
I would argue
half price.
that the comics read similarly in that Assassin's Creed has a nasty habit of...
Without being the one to do the stabbing, what's the fun? Put that on that's just context-free quote. Put me on a list. But the point is, Assassin's Creed is fun because it's the challenge of being an assassin. Like, that is an inherently interesting challenge. It's why Hitman is also a fun game. It's like, how do you... It's essentially a very violent puzzle game. How do I achieve the goal of killing this guy without drawing a fuss?
Right, but
whereas to see somebody else kill a guy without drawing a fuss, it's like, well, I'm not.
See, I've
it's
always
not a
been
challenge.
interested more with motivations and things of that nature. But I will tell you, and as somebody who's read bits of the comics and things, I was actually pretty grossly underwhelmed.
Grossly underwhelmed. That's pretty strong.
And the reason is because I expected
I think you're going to jump into that window.
That's what I was trying to do, and now he's got me behind the trunk, which is what he wanted.
You ain't getting me to a secondary location. Door, it's right there. Right there. Oh, that one's locked. The one next to it's not.
There, and I was there. He wanted to munch my butt.
Open it. Open it. What's your price to die? We've already been in here. It leads nowhere.
At least I can shoot them in the heinies without.
Well, go ahead. Whoa! It shot through his knee. Get to your point.
So I was expecting it to be a cutscene fully fleshed out, and it never was.
But even then,
it was always these
even
bits of we're going to leave you a little bit of lore here, but it always it always left you with a taste. You know what? Assassin's Creed is like heroin.
Assassin's Creed is like an enormous clock.
No, you literally get hits, and then it always leaves you empty.
But see, I don't agree though, because even if you had if you took just the cutscenes of Assassin's Creed 1, they wouldn't make a good movie. That's not what makes it.
It wouldn't make a poor movie.
Well, yeah, it would make what we got, which was it's all right. But the fun of Assassin's Creed is to be the one who solves the problem, and is I'm going to figure out the challenge.
For me, it was very much the
history adds a lot to it. I think the historical accuracy makes it so that not only am I solving a challenge,
that's what they missed in the movie. If they
it had the historical accuracy.
But if they were able to really tie that in on a more
they did. I think the Spanish Inquisition is that fits better than most of the games nowadays.
I suppose that
fits better than the Norse and Egypt.
Well, yeah, I mean you could.
It's they're.
Last call to Egypt. I'm organizing a tour. Was he serious? Okay.
That's a robot.
I've made a critical error.
You've get out of there. The robot sees you. You want to go up the stairs? The stairs are right there. Literally, the stairs are right next to you.
What do you?
Okay, well, there's two directions right next to you. Behind the pillar. You're on the other side of the pillar. The stairs are over there. The reason I like Assassin's Creed more than Hitman, despite being ostensibly the same concept, is that Assassin's Creed has the historical accuracy, which means not only am I doing an interesting challenge, but I'm also doing it in a real context. These people actually existed. This conflict that we're describing actually happened. And I think that's the issue, is that we can get into the issues with Assassin's Creed, but one of the issues is that they've gone away from real historical conflicts.
Well, and that
mostly. Yes, okay, the Viking raids on England, it's but they weren't ideologically motivated.
Exactly.
The Spanish Inquisition was ideologically motivated. The Crusades were ideologically motivated.
Right.
I would say that the point at which the series failed was unity. Because, despite the French Revolution being ideologically motivated, they somehow didn't capture it right.
No, they didn't.
And it's ever since then, it's it's Egypt. What about that is ideologically motivated? There's people in it.
It's an origin story. About what?
Despite the fact that it wasn't, because isn't it also in that game that, most of the assassin stuff already exists?
Yeah.
So it's okay, so the origins are that we always have been. The Assassin's Creed, God's an assassin, don't you know? The assassins have always been. That also loses me because it's why did they start with the Crusades in the first game? Because that's when the assassins became a thing. They didn't exist before that. So, ancient Greece and Egypt, it's you only did this because of, isn't this an interesting setting? Yeah! How'd the assassins get here? That's the real question.
Time travel.
Again, the reason they'd say is because, truly, the assassins have always been because of the pre-dawn of mankind and all of the... Again, the future plot ruins everything.
See, and that bothered me less than it does you and this guy who wants to
Jump! Get over there! What are you doing?
I tried to get in and
crouch!
It wouldn't let me.
Because of the bars in the way, you gotta crouch. We're not even going to finish this discussion.
All right, so
but
within
anyway,
the context of what you were trying to say earlier,
my point is a perfectly good film, a 5-star rating or a whatever star rating, because it doesn't have to be 5, but the best film is one which, in my opinion, I think this is leading you to the room with the guys. We don't have the health. We didn't get the upgrade to let us hack the door. Plus, talking to that guy didn't do anything for us.
Okay, so where?
I'd say just leave.
Is my hairbrush?
I think you got to go out to that, back to the gantry room.
The gantry?
Where you just came in from. Because I don't think we need to be here. So go back out there, and then you're supposed to go down a level. Because that's where the actual plot lies.
Okay, well, where?
But it's up the stairs where you came from. So yeah, for a film to be a perfect score, it has to do something I want it to do, and to do it very well. That's of course overly simplified, but it's like that is what a 5-star film is.
Okay.
Is that it has to be something I want and to be a good version of it. You know, if it's a good version of something I don't want, then this is where I've never gone into the strict mathematical quantifying of like how much does each matter? Are they equally important, or do I give more credit to one than the other?
I have to give it a 50-50 if you're going to...
Well, because that would therefore imply that if an excellent film about a subject I literally couldn't care less about would have to still be a 2.5, and I don't think that that's fair. Because that implies... I think in some sense I attempt to give the objective more credence. Because in my opinion that matters more. Especially if you want to be serious as a film critic. Not that I take it like so serious that I would ever call myself that, but like to say a film is bad simply because you don't like it, I think is very narrow-minded.
That is a very true statement.
So to me, I feel like I want to give
many
credit.
People that rate films exactly like that, and it bothers me. This film sucked. Why? Because I hated it. Okay.
Yeah, it's like so that's why I guess I do lean, which therefore would imply that I give more credit to technical execution than to emotional appeal.
On like a 70-30 kind of a thing?
Well, it depends. This is why I don't know what the math would be, but it's like Inception. To me, I feel like 4 stars is sort of my cap for a film that doesn't engross me personally. So it's like
Which is fairly generous, to be honest.
Well, yeah, because I think that's more recent because of the fact that I have been honing my exposure to film as an art form. So I think I can appreciate, like, this was very well done. And Inception, it's not like I sit through Inception and am bored because it's like, well, this is well done, but it doesn't appeal to me. We saved! Did you not save?
Yes, I saved. Pull it. It's under a new save, I'm sorry.
But it should go... But when I click continue... It should, like, surely when I say continue after I die, it should go to the closest save. That's what it always does.
I don't know.
That's dumb. So, sure, that might be generous, because I am because the reason for criticizing films, in my opinion, is because I'm trying to view them artistically.
Right.
Therefore, I'm trying to acknowledge...
Well, and as
I'm
Rand
engaging
talks
with
about,
its goodness.
you're expecting more from culture. I mean, it's like, if you don't if you don't actually make a standard for what's good and what isn't, everything's going to just be consistently
and I suppose
more
it's worth, like,
poorly executed.
Because I guess because Inception, I keep redounding to it because it's the one film about which I genuinely don't think I could have qualms, and yet which I'm not willing to rate higher than 4. And the fact that I feel that way is like, clearly there's a reason behind it that even if I don't know it, I feel is still valid. Clearly, because I feel it strongly enough.
Wow, that's something saying coming from you.
Well, I mean, it's a bit of the, like, the fact that I have such a strong opinion without reason does not imply that there isn't reason. It simply means that I don't know it yet. And perhaps if I think about it more,
sounds more like you.
Maybe I'll, by thinking about it, I might either change my mind or find the reason. That's the crux of it. So it's entertaining and it's fun, which I suppose are the minimum things I would expect of a film. Perhaps. So when I say emotional engagement, I'm engaged to some degree by that because it is nonetheless an interesting puzzle-type concept, and it's well done, and it's got humor and action and the kinds of things you'd want. But, well, here's the thing. This is actually a much better example. Well, okay, it's a slightly different, but it's still the same cusp of the thing, although we're going to have to move to TV for it. Peaky Blinders, I would give a 4.5. Arcane is a 5. And the reason is, Peaky Blinders is, like, excellently written, excellently acted, funny, action, I mean, it's not exclusive, funny is not what it's predominantly, but it has its humor, which is valuable. It's got great action, it's got all the kind of intrigue and stuff that you'd want, and it's got characters I like, but I'm not enamored with every aspect of the show. I don't love every single character. Because because again, that's subjective. I don't think, for example, that like Michael is a poorly written character, but I don't care for him personally. I like Thomas, I like Arthur, I like Alfie. These are characters that I like, and they're also well written. But that's different than. Oh boy. Am I making myself clear, or am I making it worse?
You should have saved.
I should have. I will not die. That's my commitment now. The reason I will not die is because I will save. At least I could jump like this. The reason for that other room being crappy is because it's a hallway with a low ceiling. Yay! Saving now! Woo. Am I making my point or am I making it worse?
No, I think that was good. And I think...
Because Arcane is like, I love every aspect. I like every single character in that show.
I would say the same way, but in reverse about Arcane and...
Well, again, that's why it's subjective.
But I think that is a good representation because the reason I would say a 4.5 for Arcane is not because I don't like it. It's because I go, it's just not something that I'm quite as...
Well, that's the crux of it. So when I say...
about...
Yeah, it's like when I say it doesn't engage me, of course it engages me on some level, but it doesn't engage me on the deepest possible level.
Right.
Like, Michael's not a badly written character. I don't go, ugh, he's so annoying and dumb. I mean, by the end he kind of is, but that's the point. You're supposed to feel that way. Whereas, like... I forgot exactly where I was going to go from that. It was a springboard to something I forget.
Comparing the...
Well, it's like, if for a film... I mean, 5 stars is a little bit unfair, I admit, because as I've acknowledged, based on your travel philosophy, 5 stars is technically higher than it could go low. If you start at 2.5 and go up 2.5, or I guess, no, because I guess half a star is the minimum. So it's like if you go down 2 from 2.5, that's half a star. That's the worst it could be. You go up 2, again, that's 4.5.
Remember,
which in my opinion is as good as it can get.
If you remember, though, I have already conceded that I would have to use. I would be restricted to using.
Well, sure,
integers.
but I still think that there is some merit in the travel philosophy, and I will acknowledge that I am giving room on the upper end for things that are exceptionally good.
Sure.
And I want there to be that kind of room, because to me, 4.5 I think is literally as high as it could get without being religious.
Which is what Arcane is.
Essentially, well, I mean, I joke in a way, but it's like, this is...
I would not say it's unfair to say it's a religious experience, certainly. I mean...
All right, I'm going to save now.
Watching Peaky Blinders for me was not... I want to be careful here.
Well, you could say
I recognize that there is certainly smut present within Peaky Blinders.
It's awfully blunt.
But... It was a religious experience for me in that I truly think that because of my generational
now I saved right before that, so you should be able to go straight into that fight.
To all of the underpinnings of the show, it did feel very much like a personal connection. It was like, and I know that seems thin to you, but it really isn't.
Well, no offense, I think it is thin, and I also think it's unnecessary because there is nothing about Arcane that represents my life, and I don't need it to.
I'm not saying I need it to. I'm just saying part of what really attracts me to it is the fact that it feels like this.
But
what goes through my mind is what the kind of the what ifs of this could still have been my life. Like, not specifically being some top dog, but saying like being a part of this culture could easily have been.
Well, that culture kind of doesn't exist anymore. So I think if you lived in the 20s, perhaps. I mean, if I lived in the 20s, perhaps.
Possibly this is ignorant, but I still think it exists on some level.
It does to some degree, but not to that degree.
Now.
Well, and not to that degree. They don't have nearly as much power as they did.
That's certainly true. They don't have nearly as much power as they did, and their control looks a little more nuanced now.
But I'm saying, I still think that that's an unnecessary element, because, like, to say that must be the reason, it's like, I think that does disservice to the fact that a well-written thing can
I'm not saying
provide
that's
that
the only
experience
reason.
even if you don't have any.
No, I'm not saying that's the only reason. I'm certainly not, because I actually felt equally intrigued. Like, okay, so I'll say it this way: starting both Peaky Blinders and Mad Men, the reason I started both those shows were for the same reasons. I was like, oh, I'm kind of intrigued by the main characters and kind of the fact that they're very dominant, like, personalities and, so whatever. And I got into the shows, and I actually stopped watching Mad Men because I was like, it got kind of monotonous after a while.
I feel like I don't know enough about Mad Men to speak to it, but I wouldn't have put them together. I don't think they're specifically synonymous by any means, or even. Whoa! You went like, wait, which save did you click on? This is way back in China.
You never know.
I didn't click on any save.
I told you save 4.
I didn't click on a save.
Where did save? Yeah, I don't know what that's. It's weird that this isn't behaving right. I mean, maybe when I see the editing, I'll find that you did click a save and that you're just weird, but...
Maybe I wasn't thinking about it. Anyway, no, what I'm saying, and I guess in a roundabout manner, is to say, first of all, I agree on a bird's eye level that is in the most broad brushstrokes, that is what anybody, I would argue, gauges film specifically on.
I don't know that I would agree, because some people just aren't critically savvy.
I agree, but then at that point they're almost determinately deciding solely based on the do I like it concept.
Well, and I know people who would openly admit that. They're like, oh, it's a good film if it entertains me. And I'm like,
but see,
that means
but
your
what I'm
bar
saying
of
is,
what a good film is.
What I'm saying
mine.
is all they're doing is leaning to one pole. That's all.
Not even, because I mean, I guess maybe if what they mean by entertain is engage, but that's not what I mean by engage. I mean, entertainment's a vague enough concept that, like, can you be engaged by something that's not entertaining? I mean, I guess you can't, because a thing that's boring is likely not to engage you. But
I'm not.
Well, because when you say entertaining, that does imply a certain degree of, like, it has to keep your interest. Because otherwise it's boring. And the thing that engages you inevitably is going to keep your interest.
In the most historically accurate definition of the word, which is to actually, maintain intrigue. I mean, it's like entertain an idea or a thought.
I guess, but essentially it's people that don't... I mean, I would almost say, and as much as they may not say it themselves, I think what they're essentially arguing is that films aren't art at that point.
Sure.
They're essentially saying they're nothing more than entertainment.
Sure, some people do.
Therefore, so long as I find it interesting enough to keep watching it, it's okay. You weren't lying. This is so stupid. Why is that what it has to do? And then we got to sit through this loading screen again.
Anyway,
that's very dumb.
So I'm going to, and we may have to obviously do this in a very shotgun approach, but
why?
If I push in slightly...
Are you cutting us off at one episode?
Well, I'm certainly thinking that we ought to try to keep this discussion to one episode.
Why? This is not a stupid discussion. This is a nice discussion. I like this discussion more.
Wow. Thank you. I'm glad our interactions were...
All of the last one could have been one episode, and we would have lost nothing.
It's true, I agree.
There was a lot of back and forth for no reason.
So
How much can these things take?
pressing in, or I guess zooming in
What?
a little bit further into
Is that
what
actually
makes
destroyed, or
what
is that...
makes up those parts. I would say what makes me like a film or a TV series is, for me, and this is for me on the subjective side of things, what makes me actually engage with it is I find that most movies or TV shows that I choose to watch on my own, unprovoked
So
by any
let's
sort
do
of...
this. Let's do the safe thing, and instead of saying load latest, let's just make sure we load the right one every time. I don't trust it anymore, so it'll always be number 4.
The things that I watch with unprovoked of any cultural pressure / friend, like, oh, you should watch this kind of a thing.
What
would be?
I feel like that vacuum would take away every option.
No,
because the only way you would watch something is either because you hear about it culturally or someone recommends it.
No, I'm saying meaning like sometimes on a what's the movie? Napoleon Dynamite. Really stupid film. I honestly don't.
But you had to have watched that back
of course
when it was
I watched
popular
it.
because
100%
it was popular.
Because it was popular, right? But what I'm saying is when I approach a film or a TV series that I choose myself to say, you know what, I really want... What is going on? He's spying me like a fish in a barrel.
Hold the cover button. This is the one element of this game. We're at the end and you...
I just blew my face off. That was the dumbest thing I've ever done.
It really, really
okay,
was.
I have to just concede that was a horrible run and give it up.
That was
okay. Anyway, no, but when I'm talking about subjectivity, one thing that does engage me for sure always is score. That for sure is a pretty core element of and I would say that is true of Peaky Blinders. It's certainly true of...
But I would put that under the technical aspect. Like a good score is part of what makes a good movie well executed.
It's sure, but it's also what engages me too.
I suppose I'll have to give you...
Like, for instance, A Band of Brothers, I literally watched that series after hearing the score and wanting to actually understand what the score...
Well, I was going to say I think that's an odd, but then again, I'll have to give an example of my own that's equally odd to show that I guess perhaps you're more right than I thought. Because the film... This is going to be a really weird one because it's solely random. There is a... Would you believe that there is an anime film adaptation of Beauty and the Beast?
Oh, that's...
And as fascinating... It sounds really fascinating. When I heard that, I was like, that'll be interesting.
Was it not good?
It's not good. It could have easily been a 5-star film because the animation and the music are great. And the first I heard of it was the music.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. At first I just assumed this was like, oh, is this just some random musician? And I found out that it's from the movie, and I was like, oh, what's this movie? Oh, it's a Japanese reinterpretation of Beauty and the Beast. I was like, that alone is an elevator pitch I can get behind.
Right.
Because that's a fascinating idea.
Right.
The problem is it doesn't quite
live up to that expectation.
No, but the reason I still think I rated it fairly highly because I was like, the animation and the music alone still make this something very much worth watching. So
I suppose you're right, though, but you're right in saying that's more of a technicality, like a technical...
Well, no, because
element.
I still listened to the music from the movie because I was like, these are really well-made songs and sung well by the person they got to do it. So it's like that's an emotional engagement, I must concede, even though it also is technical. I suppose it's one of the elements of a film that can go both ways.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess when you say score, I think symphonic arrangement rather than...
Me too.
So, and I can't think of a similar experience with a actual accompaniment, as opposed to these were actually like songs, like that could have been pop songs essentially.
Speaking of Arcane, kind of almost.
I wasn't going to, because those songs,
because I mean,
they're very good songs. But I don't. I didn't expect you to go there because I'm honestly not. I would classify those more under the technicality myself. So they do get repaired. I thought, okay, either that or there's 3. Are there 3 turrets on this thing or 2?
I do not know.
I thought there were 2 because I thought I destroyed one of them. That one's destroyed, right? Okay, so there's 3 turrets. That one's broken. I already blew that one up, so that just means that there's 3 that I have to destroy in total. And sadly, I'm out of my big explosive gun. There we go. Because these things are going to be an absolute pain if they're not taken out by the time we actually get the fight going.
See.
I'm going to wait until I get all 3 of them, but yes, I will do that. I don't know, I suppose music, but even then, that's music as opposed to score.
No, that's
soundtrack, I suppose, is opposed to
soundtrack's
score.
a better umbrella for it.
Because
yes.
and I'm sure, like, there are no doubt people who are more into classical music than I am would say, I feel the same way about the accompaniment music from this film. So I guess it's just a matter of taste, but I don't know.
So that's one thing I would say for me as an audiophile. I would certainly.
But this is all under the category of engagement.
Yeah, it is. So that if I'm talking about that pillar right now is the only thing I'm talking about. The other thing that I think engages me the most, and this has just historically been true for me, is
Sandra Bullock.
Okay, that's a different.
I like that you're not even arguing.
Oh, I don't have a problem.
That's a different reason. I'll get to that later. Okay, why does it keep shooting after I'm hitting?
It's typically I like very competent, strong male lead kind of
I was about
characters.
to say competent writing or
no. Like I enjoy.
Is that only a retroactive thing?
No,
now,
it's not. No, because even as a kid, I remember like great example would be even within the Yip Man movies. A lot of people would say, well, those are foreign films that are almost solely for the sake of the fight sequences. Not for me. I genuinely enjoy watching the.
There we go.
Dominance makes it sound so like lizard brain of me, but it's the idea of a man being able to communicate with authority without being a complete canoe. You know what I mean? Like there's
okay, so
there's an element
fight's already going.
There's an element of being able to be strong and demonstrative without being a douche. I mean, that is useful to me, and
here's where the moral complexity of the game comes. It's going to kill these people, despite perhaps probably being put into this circumstance against their will.
So,
well, get back here, you.
So the reason that I would say that that is for me an engaging thing. You look at like the Bond films and people give them crap because it's the whole it's the male fantasy thing. I think it's dumb.
I would argue that there's not much nuance to James Bond.
That's true, but again, on what I like,
okay,
that is certainly an element of films that and movies that I enjoy.
Because I think even you'd have to acknowledge that James Bond is a canoe. That's part of the. At least he has been. I can't say every of the 40 films, but yes. I mean, like he's not a great person.
That's true. No, you have a point there.
Okay, you're so stupid. So if I'm up right next to it, I can't push it. But if I step back, I can push it.
You gotta make sure you're not crushed by the.
I'm not standing next to it. Okay, how much?
Undulating woman.
I don't know how many shots to the brain from point blank it takes.
But then the only other thing that I would say is
shooting the wrong part. Do I have to shoot up in there?
There's another element.
Ooh.
Oh, goodness me! That was a little more dark than I think you meant it to be.
Well, apparently I can't shoot in the head. There's no head left. It's all spikes. Well, this is gross. Oh! Alright. Well, your sentience is wiped out. Too bad you felt the need to join with a computer. Again, I'm assuming this is their choice. This could have been... I mean, I suppose you might argue that I'm, like, putting them out of their misery, because they probably can't be taken out of these things by now. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Oi, oi, oi! I forgot that this happened.
So, the only other thing... I think that there would be another category within the what I actually find engaging, and that is that there's a bit of a romantic side to me
I'll agree with that, but again,
that is the kind of...
Again, I say in the classical sense,
yes.
Literally the Romantic Manifesto.
No, I was meaning more in the sense of, like, classic, almost, like, classic,
I can still take these guys down
literature
the
that's,
normal
like, more
That's-
meant for, like, for instance, like Pride and Prejudice, those types of ones.
That's-
For me, I enjoy those
People
movies
think of
because
that.
of...
Oh, the movies. I was thinking of the book.
I enjoy the movies of, like, you know, the what is it called? Emma and Sense and Sensibility and some of those other ones. Because of a part of it is still the same thing, though. It really comes back to that same thing. It's a strong male lead of back in the day when men actually had propriety and had to communicate in a manner that was like, hey, I have respect for others, but I'm also going to call you out if you're being a complete, you know, social...
Apparently we're stuck with that word.
Social, you know,
This
despot.
boss fight is so much easier than I remember.
So...
Everything about this game is easier than I remember.
I suppose it really comes back to that repeatedly almost. I mean, because my only other one that I was going to say was on a more...
Then why don't you like Arcane more? What in the heck?
On a more enjoyable kind of goofy level, there's obviously ones where I just enjoy watching them because they're more... But that is more of like my nerd side of things, like if it's an interest of... Like I enjoyed the film, some of the new, at least the first one, the first new Star Trek I thought was pretty decent.
I question your sense.
That's fine, you can do so, but so there's that part of
even people who are like big Trek fans I've heard are like, no, it sucks.
Well, I'm not okay. Again, this is I'm not gonna disagree that if the execution was great. I think it's broken. Is it not?
But this wasn't even here a minute ago. I gotta kill this lady.
So I'm gonna argue that those are kind of the three categories: the kind of romantic.
I guess I should save.
Or I suppose basically. More chick flicky kind of films.
See, that's I have to draw the line there.
I enjoy them, and I don't know why.
Are not romantic at all.
Well, that's true. They're
then again,
rom-coms.
I suppose are they like a woman's version of romance?
Well, I think funny is a fairly important element of women's romance. Yes.